Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm CJ Vogel. Look who's sitting right next to me. It's Hank South, getting right into the business here on Texas Football. Look, Hank, glad to have you first and foremost. Welcome. And additionally, we spent 7 hours out here, beautiful Denton Guyer football facilities for the Under Armour Camp. First and foremost, let me get you a nice little welcome to On Texas Football, but also your initial takeaway from the talent out here today as well.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm very excited to be here, as I posted on the website. Obviously, this is a pretty elite operation as it is. I hope to just add to it. So excited to be here. But yeah, today Under Armour Dallas, it was a pretty loaded camp, I would say overall. Particularly on the offensive line, we saw a lot of guys that Texas is heavy after: Brian Swanson, Peyton Miller, some other names we'll talk about. And they really kind of showed why, they're obviously so coveted by Texas. I thought, the one-on-ones with the wide receivers, I thought, and the DBs, I thought was, some really good competition. We saw some high-level play. Some of the running backs showed out, obviously guys we've touched on: Sherrod Baker, Latham Wissington. Obviously we'll go more into detail on them, but I thought overall a really good camp. It was very competitive. A lot of guys that, and I know Under Armour states this too, but guys that have already played in the Under Armour game that don't necessarily have to come out here when they've already kind of reached that pinnacle, but they still want to come out here and compete. So you got to give them props on that.
Absolutely. And a couple of those guys, we'll start on the offensive line because those were the first guys that we saw today. Getting to watch Brian Swanson win MVP, obviously Peyton Miller still in very much conversation for Texas. I think far and away, I put up on the site, those were the two guys that impressed me the most. And those are two guys that Texas very much after at the moment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we talked to a guy like Peyton Miller, he was a junior day recently. Texas is always going to be there for him. Brian Swanson, I know Texas is obviously heavy after him too. But, both of them, I didn't see either of them lose a rep personally. And obviously they were in that Final Five group too with the one-on-one. So really good day for both of them. But I thought, maybe one of the – not really a surprise, but and I'm going to let you say his name, and I know you know what I'm talking about, but Jasper
Ngakwe from Richardson.
Yes.
He looks like your prototypical left tackle. And I know Texas has been in communication. About a week ago, he told me that Texas and him have talked official visits. They've not yet set a date. So that's something to keep in the back pocket. We'll see if he pops up at any point in the spring as well. But he looked pretty darn good today. But I do need to mention Jackson Cook out of Austin Westlake as well. He was another guy that I thought there were 4 offensive linemen that I looked at and said, okay, that's probably separated from the rest of the pack at the moment. Cook looked good. He's had snaps at center, played both guard spots, even some reps towards the end at tackle. Yeah. He and Texas have recently picked up communication again in regards to an official visit. We'll see if one is scheduled for June. Right now he has Duke, SMU, and Arkansas. So we'll keep that in mind. Not many guys on the defensive line for Texas today, though you did get to catch up with a Texas Tech commit and a big one, Jalen Brewster.
Yeah. So Jalen Brewster, obviously, he was dealing with a labrum surgery. So he did not work out today, but he did show up. And if you're looking for an optimistic, takeaway from Jalen Brewster, you're not going to get it. He is very firmly committed to Texas Tech. I think Texas obviously, covets him. They like him a lot. They would love him in this class, but I think he's pretty happy with Texas Tech right now. Yeah. We'll see if anything changes. He did note he has some official visits scheduled, but he went with the no comment route on where those visits will be. So we'll keep an eye on him. Obviously, we're sitting here in the month of March. Things can change, but Jalen Brewster, I don't anticipate anything happening there with Texas right now.
Yeah, and another Tech commit that we watched today, Kadrian Redmond looked good. We'll see, again, where Texas goes with Redmond. I know Texas has gone the more national route. We'll see Texas again in Florida and Georgia and Mississippi when it comes to these guys on the defensive line. So, with that said, the trenches wrapped up. I do want to hit immediately on John Meredith because I think that's where a lot of folks are saying, what's going on with the top cornerback in the country now at North Crowley, which we could probably make an entire video over the talent at North Crowley at the moment.
Kidding.
But Texas, John Meredith talking consistently. As you would expect, he has a great relationship with Mark Orfe. He told both of us that that's a guy that he is really fond of right now. And so will he get back to campus in spring? That's the big question. He said, we'll see. The plan, of course, is an official visit. He said, again, we'll see on when the dates come out. But Texas A&M, Alabama, he said, look, I have a number of schools that I'm still interested on. Was there a main takeaway that you had?
it almost felt like, and I don't, not like a reset, but I just feel like he's truly, I see the Texas A&M buzz, and I think that's merited. But I think he is open to, checking out these schools. He mentioned Miami, obviously Alabama.
Yeah.
He said he was close with Coach Mo there, Mo Linguist. So I think he's really willing or open to, taking this into the summer, taking these visits. But, at the end of the day, I think the note of the day, like he had family in the stands with the Texas shirt on, read into that how you will. But
Right.
I think at the end of the day, you got to look at Texas A&M. I think, but my main takeaway was that he is going to take his time here and not, rush to any decision.
Boy, does he look good working out too. I'll tell you that, I mean, of the cornerbacks that I've evaluated, you've done this a lot longer than I have, but it's Devin Sanchez and it's John Meredith in terms of length, how they look coming off the bus, and obviously movement as well. So we'll see. I will say for John Meredith, winning over mom is going to be very important in this recruitment as well. And he mentioned that a little bit, just saying, hey, my mom wants the best for me. And schools obviously know that. So what mom says, I think, plays a pretty significant part in his recruitment. We'll see how that goes. I did get to catch up a little bit with Montre Jackson as well. I went down South Dallas on Saturday and watched him in his track meet. Stumbled a little bit in the 100, so we don't have a time that, I'm sure he's going to be parading around a little bit. But, hey, that's another guy that, looking at Texas at the moment, very heavily involved with Mark Orfe, with Will Muschamp. Muschamp actually was the first call to a cornerback was to Jackson. A little bit of a surprise there, but worth mentioning. So Texas right now with both guys very much in the hunt, and we'll see what happens there. Going down to the running back position, kind of flipping sides there. I know that you had a couple nuggets on Sherrod Baker, and we also got to talk a little bit about Lathan Wisington. Baker, obviously the DeSoto running back, ended up with MVP honors coming out of the day as well.
Yeah, he had a good day. He had a really nice catch out of the backfield on one of his reps. Speaking to him, I kind of got some Texas A&M vibes from him. But again, a kid that's going to take all these visits, he's going to do his due diligence. Texas is going to get him on campus for a spring visit. They're going to get him on campus for his summer OV. And I think they're right there in the mix. He probably spoke most glowingly of Texas A&M and his relationship with their running backs coach. But just from talking to people around the camp, I think Texas is very much in it. I think he ran a 4.6 today. He said he tweaked his ankle a little bit earlier this spring. So, it's pretty good on a tweaked ankle, I'd say. But so that's where, Sherrod Baker's at. And then Lathan Wisington, obviously a major Texas target as well. A guy, you probably have the track time in the back of your head, but a blazing fast running back, has official visits to Texas Tech, Baylor, and SMU. And he's going to also unofficially visit Texas in the spring as well. He's pretty, pretty soft-spoken when it comes to favorites. But I think, when kids start setting official visits up, you can kind of – those schools are probably, a short list, if you want to start kind of narrowing things down.
I'll say this. This was my first time seeing Wisington in person. That's what they look like.
Yeah.
That's what the good college running backs look like. So, again, a 10.4, 10.5 guy. I know he released a track time about a week ago, and we all sent it around in our chat saying, whoa, so obviously a name to monitor moving forward. Braylon Williams, big-time linebacker out of Arlington Lamar, talked to him a little bit. He and Texas are going to settle with an official visit. When will that be? Again, kind of the recurring theme is there's a lot of guys that are still waiting to hear and settle and kind of just finalize their plans for the summer. But Texas A&M, Michigan, and SMU are going to be the four schools that receive officials from Braylon Williams at the moment. That obviously could change, but he said he talks to Johnny Nance and he talks to Steve Sarkisian probably once or twice a week for about a month now. So things are progressing well. And of course, he's been to Texas a few times already in his recruitment. That's kind of where things stand with Braylon Williams. I know Texas is very heavily involved with linebackers out of Georgia. They already have one in the boat already with Hogg, and obviously Jaden Nelson's another guy that they're bringing in on the June 12th weekend. So linebacker, another piece to the puzzle, perhaps, with Braylon Williams. Going over to wide receiver, I know that there was a few here.
Yeah.
A few really talented wide receivers at the Under Armour camp. Stop me if you've heard that before. We'll start with Bryson Thrower. We got to talk to him. That's been a guy that if you followed on Texas football for a while, that's a name that Texas is very fond of and very high up on the board right now. We talked to him probably a good 5 or 6 minutes. I asked him, do you feel like a priority for Texas? He said, absolutely. Chris Jackson tells me that basically every time that we're on the phone together. Again, another guy that you just see the frame and you say, that looks very springy. He looks very hyperactive in the legs, a guy with a lot of athleticism. But give me your takeaway on Bryson Thrower and what we discussed a little bit today.
Yeah, I got the feeling that, and I'm completely blanking on the schools, and you might remember more than he did, but he did. I think what he noted, I asked him, who are you closest with so far in this process? And he didn't really hesitate. He said Chris Jackson. And so, in this era of NIL, who's paying the most, who's doing the most in that regard, relationships still matter to a degree. And certainly, I think receivers can look at Texas and say, okay, here's a coach that's putting guys consistently into the league at least once a draft, if not more. And so that was the biggest takeaway. I think he's a kid that, Texas stays after the way they are, could certainly end up in Austin when all is said and done.
I totally agree. We're going to continue with Chris Jackson because talking a little bit with Jeremiah Douglas as well, that's a lot of the theme that we're hearing from wide receivers is Chris Jackson's the guy, obviously, coaches the position, but it's his relationship and the ability to connect with these kids that stands out with, as we talked about Bryson Thrower, Jeremiah Douglas. You talked to Trenton Yancey as well. So Chris Jackson, his relationship building, keeping Texas in a lot of these. I'll add this about Douglas, still committed to Vanderbilt. Still taking his official visit to Texas the first week. That'll be June 5th through the 7th. He'll be at Vanderbilt the week before. And he said, look, I like Texas. They probably have the best chance of anybody to flip me. Ole Miss is also in the picture. A number of other schools, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Iowa State, all in the conversation. He said, look, I like what Vanderbilt has. I know that the coach is going to be there for a long time. They just pulled in Jared Curtis. They have a good picture for a wide receiver, but still Chris Jackson and Texas, they are sitting there right on the heels. And he said, look, Texas has the best chance to flip me. They finished number 2 originally when I made this decision, but I like Vanderbilt, and that's where things sit at the moment. But I know Texas has an official with Trenton Yancey as well. What's the latest with the Duncanville star?
Yeah, I think, he's pretty soft-spoken as well. He's not going to say too much or give you too much, but, he has that official visit set for June 12th through 14th to Austin. He's going to try to get down for a spring visit as well. But, again, a guy that's talking to Chris Jackson, he keeps saying his name, talking to Sark, they just keep talking about the development aspect, the NFL, obviously, aspirations. And obviously, Texas recruits Duncanville pretty well.
Yeah.
They have some guys on their roster that could say, hey, look at these guys that came from Duncanville. We can do that for you or try to do that for you as well. So I think Trenton Yancey's pretty enamored with Texas. He's one of the few receivers that has an official visit locked in. So I think that kind of shows you, it's mutual with him in Texas, in that regard. So I think he's a guy to watch very closely throughout the spring.
I agree. So we'll obviously keep you updated over on Texas football. A couple of other notes and nuggets that I picked up, and feel free to add your own here in a second. First, no Dylan McGee today. The Red Oak safety expected to be out here. He tweaked a hammy, is kind of the word on the street over here in Denton on Saturday. So he was sidelined, unfortunately. Still, he has his official visit set in the month of June. I wanted to mention Braylon Cunningham because I know we've talked about it in the one-on-ones. He's a 2029 cornerback at North Crowley. Again, we could talk all day about North Crowley kids, but Braylon Cunningham, probably the best cornerback that I watched today outside of John Meredith, which is crazy to say given who else was also at this camp today. So a lot going on here. That was one of my big takeaways was, whoa, and obviously seeing Champ Mays, Demarion Mays, the 2028 wide receiver at North Crowley, you sit there and say, yeah, these guys are pretty darn good.
Yeah. I would just add, another receiver, we didn't touch on here, but Julian Caldwell, big Texas target, has no V locked in for the summer as well.
Yep.
He's dealing with some turf toe, he said, so he didn't work out. He said he's going to be back next week. So, I don't think it's going to sideline him too long. Texas, Texas Tech, Oregon were the schools he mentioned first. And Julian Caldwell's got a lot of offers. So, there'll probably be some others as well. How about Des Bryant Jr.?
Yeah.
Out there making some really nice,
He's got his dad's hands. There were a number of times where that maybe separation was still, tight coverage at least, but the hands and the ability to extend the hands look just like his dad.
So, yeah, he'll be pretty good. South Lake Carroll, right?
Yes.
So certainly one to watch coming up. But beyond that, I think, we mentioned Jalen Brewster didn't work out, Caldwell, McGee, but I think it was a pretty overall it was a pretty strong showing of talent in Dallas.
And of course, it feels strange not to have a Texas quarterback out here as well. No Ty Knutson today, unfortunately. But hey, There's plenty of other Texas talent that we will have plenty of notes for up on the website on ontexasfootball.com. So we'll go much more in depth today, tomorrow, and into this week as we get ready for spring football starting about a week from tomorrow. So looking forward to it. Hank, thank you very much. And also welcome to OTF. Looking forward to working with you.
Thanks for having me.
All righty. Take it easy. Happy Sunday.